Okay, Stephan Sterns is doing the most. He is really trying to stay alive. He really wants to beat these charges in court, and his lawyer is doing everything to help him. So I went on a deep dive into his potential defenses, seeing whatever I could find out about Stephan Sterns' accident, his alleged TBI, traumatic brain injury he received as an 8-year-old boy, and his $20,000 GEICO personal injury TBI settlement. Will it help him escape the worst punishment, the worst penalty down there in Florida? Will a jury fall for these excuses? We know his lawyer is fighting hard for Stephan Sterns to avoid getting in that electric chair or getting toxic chemicals placed in his arm, or however they would do it. So I went on a real deep dive this week into the Sarasota court records and calling Sarasota and being on hold and being in the bathtub, putting myself on mute, waiting for a long time, and then finally, when they answer, I'm still muted, unmuting myself and giving up my credit card number to try and get documents. Well, this is what happened. Something very pivotal happened to Stephan Sterns when he was an 8-year-old boy, and I suspect this accident and the alleged resulting TBI, traumatic brain injury, it'll be the crux of his defense. After all, his parents have already brought this up during their interviews with police and everything. But will it work at all? I've seen juries do crazier things than this that we'll talk about, so I wouldn't so quickly poo-poo this as a defense. His lawyer is fighting tooth and nail not to see Stephan leave this earth. The accident in question happened on September 26, 1994, according to court documents. This is the same accident we've heard Deborah Sterns talk about in interviews, Stephan's mom, in that staccato rhythm.
I want to go back to the medication that Stephan. So Stephan on Saturday asked you if you had any of medicine to calm his anxiety.
Right.
Did he have prescription medication that just wasn't filled, or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he didn't have any medicine to take to Kissimmee?
No, not that we're aware of. And one of the things I was pressing hard with Stephan when he left Disney, I said, talk to Human Resources to get your insurance coverage after you leave, because you need it for prescriptions. And so up until 2 weeks ago, I'm assuming he had enough medication to get him through, but he needed some medication, so we're trying to get him back on insurance, which I did. And then there was a waiting period of a few days that we were supposed to call in and then arrange to get his prescription filled. He contacted the doctor, supposedly, because I told him to, and there would have been a prescription waiting for him, but it never got filled.
Gotcha. Okay.
When did he start taking prescription medication? Do you remember?
He started taking Adderall when he was a child. I mean, he has a TBI, and so he was on an IEP through school, individual education program. He went to special classes. He was hit by a truck when he was 8, hit in the back of the head with the bumper, run over his torso, and then the guy heard everybody screaming, put the car drive and drove back over him, got him in the front of the head. And then, so he...
Well, how long has he been seeing the psychiatrist, psychologist?
The counselor there?
Yeah, counselor.
About 4 years.
So she was prescribing medications for him at least 4 or 5 years ago, whenever he started going to counseling.
So when you last saw him on Saturday and he's having this episode, the next time you see him is Tuesday night, going into Wednesday?
Wednesday morning, 2:15.
Early in the morning.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Change in his demeanor, I'm assuming, was different?
Just very stoic, no emotions. Again, I'm attributing to maybe medication he's taking and the fact that...
Where would he get that medication? From Jen, if he was going to take it?
Yeah, in fact, Jen said, "Oh, don't worry about it. I have some meds here he could use."
And then the fact that we're now looking at early Wednesday morning. Now, going back to 5 o'clock, well, actually even sooner than that, since he knew the true events. So from that Monday afternoon or sometime Monday all the way to Wednesday early morning, I don't know how much sleep he's had. I know he's been under a lot of pressure, obviously, from questioning and interviews and what have you. So I didn't expect to see much of him, much other than just being somewhat stoic, kind of zombie, out of it. That's when when I left him in his room, he was sitting in a chair. And matter of fact, I remember hearing a comment with Jen when I was talking to him. They were driving over to the hotel. She's yelling at him to wake up because he was sleeping in the car. And when I left him in this room, sitting in that chair, he looked like a guy that was going to pass out. And to hear that he drove down to Northport and back shocks the shit out of me. Unbelievable. So, the guy was like out of it. And where he came up with all that energy to do that. And then when he comes back to the hotel room, he's got an energy drink, and then he immediately crawls into bed, and he is dead to the world. You can't wake him up. And it's like, all these hours and everything else finally caught up to him, but there was no waking him up. He was passed out.
Okay. Jeremy?
I seriously don't know what he would have done if he'd had access to the house. But what he didn't realize is that when Chris leaves, this house gets locked up like Fort Worth, like Fort Knox, whatever it is. But because I never locked that door because it's a pain in the butt to get it up into the security position. And Elliot dislocated my thumb, so not one of these dogs are ripped a tendon. So I'm right-handed, so it's even harder. But I did do that because.
The officer was asking both Deborah and Chris, when did Stephan start taking all these prescription medications? After all, prescription meds were a common theme, a thread throughout many of these interviews. We heard it over and over again from Stephan himself, from Jennifer, his on-again, off-again girlfriend. We've heard it from Stephan's friends, all the medications he took. Well, Stephan's mom, Deborah, harkened all the way back to his childhood. She said he started taking Adderall when he was a child. That's when she explained he had a TBI, so Stephan was on an IEP, an individualized education program. He went to special classes, she explained. I can't help but also to think of the IEP that Stephan's victim, 13-year-old Madeline Soto, was on too, along with other similarities and parallels we'll discuss in this case. So Deborah went on to say that he was hit by a truck when he was 8. He was hit in the back of the head with a bumper, and the truck ran over his torso, according to Deborah. That sounds pretty dramatic. Now, I have heard in other instances, I remember one Bible study where a woman was like, yeah, when we were little, this girl survived this crazy injury where like a car ran over her head. So it sounds impossible, but I know it's not impossible. But for a truck to run over Stephan's torso, hit him in the head with the back of the bumper. Then Deborah said, then the guy heard everybody screaming. I guess Stephan's little friends must have been screaming. The guy put the car in drive and drove back over him and got him in the front of the head. I couldn't find any evidence of, I guess that would be a minor accident. I was searching newspaper archives and everything. But since Stephan survived, maybe no one covered it. Maybe it wasn't that serious in Sarasota, based on the news cycle, based on the news. Chris would go on to say he did fine as a kid. Maybe later this brain injury started, and that's when he gets interrupted by Deborah.
Clean? No. It always a challenge to get him to pick up his room. Always.
I was going to surprise him and put a hazmat sticker across his door. Because I opened it and looked at it and shut the door again and said, not going in there. So then I offered to help him clean his room. I said, look, it's hard when it's that bad to even know where to start. I said, I will help you.
We tried to encourage him for sports. He played baseball.
He ran track.
But he seemed fine as a kid growing up, and I don't know, maybe later this brain injury started.
He did not have very close friends. He had a couple of close friends and some acquaintances, but those were the only ones. And He took Shotokan karate with Brian. They got up to a brown belt.
How were his emotions as a kid?
Volatile, but also, I mean, even in kindergarten, before the accident, he didn't participate with the other kids a lot. He would rather go and make up his own game and do his own thing than that. He has a very high IQ. He's very intelligent, and I think that I was in college at the time too, trying to finish my degree, and I had all my books, oceanography and stuff like that, and he was interested. And when he was little, he was looking at my college textbooks, and I taught him to read. And he was reading at probably a 5th or 6th grade level when he went into 1st grade.
Okay.
He has a marvelous vocabulary. He has a great mind for history. If something interests him, he goes all in to research it. So
Well, if he's passionate about something, he will
Put the effort in.
focus.
he becomes an expert
He got
real
it.
quick.
Became passionate about whiskeys. Ask him anything about whiskeys. Ask him anything about teas. I said, Steph, go to the liquor store, and if you got this much knowledge, put it to use. Then you get involved in these games and what have you. But boy, if he got focused on something, laser focus, and that really at an early age, because we came down from Georgia to Disney World, and he got the key to the liquor bar,
Mini bar.
and he stayed there focused until he got that key and unlocked it at 3 years old. I mean, he was like that laser
He
focused.
didn't want liquor, he wanted candy.
Yeah. But he was
The expensive candy that's in those.
Well,
yeah.
he was very, very vocal with us that he wanted more candy, because we bribed him with candy all the way down on the plane. We were waiting for the car to come to get the car seat put in, jump seat for him. And I'm gonna let you tell it because I started laughing.
So we're in the car, we're on the way to this dinner, and he's in the back seat wearing a sailor suit. And I want
It's cute.
candy. No, Stephan, I'm looking at the rear view. No, Stephan, you can't. We're on our way to dinner. Don't want to spoil dinner. I want candy. No, you can't have candy. And he goes, I looked in my rearview mirror, looked at her, and just started laughing. And I said, no candy. And so everybody's complimenting how cute he looks and what have you. So I got to tell you a cute story. He had obsessed with stuff sometimes, but
And I am loud. When I'm frustrated, I yell. I don't scream. Somebody told us that I'm a screamer. I don't scream, I yell. If they want to hear a scream, I'll show them a scream. But,
she's Irish.
yes,
Do not upset the Irish.
I am Irish. I have an Irish temper. I go from 0 to blow real quick. And I do yell. I do not beat. Do not abuse him physically, but I yelled. Most of the time I'd be yelling from one room to another,
But Stephan's parents did admit he had volatile emotions as a kid. Even before the accident, Stephan was described as a loner. We know this TBI is going to be a big part of Stephan's defense. Will he claim the TBI changed his personality to the point where he didn't know right from wrong? I don't know. But in that jail call between Stephan and his parents from May 2024, we hear Deborah tell him, well, we got a copy of your birth certificate for your case. We're trying to get hospital records from the TBI, but Sarasota Memorial Hospital says you were never a patient there, but that's ridiculous since we know you were. Stephan just goes, yeah.
Well, we got a copy of your birth certificate for Sheila Marino and for your case. We're trying to get hospital records from the TBI, but Sarasota Memorial says you were never a patient there, so that's ridiculous because we know you were.
Yeah. And were you able to find my Social Security card?
Yes.
Good. I presume it was probably in that mouse toy box with everything?
I don't know.
No, it wasn't.
It's in my.
No, I don't recall where it was, but it wasn't. It wasn't there. But
I don't remember if you had confirmed or not. Were you able to find my watch?
No, we weren't.
Yeah.
So,
There was no popcorn box.
Little silver mouse
we already
toy.
had your social security card, so why did you think we need I already knew your number, I don't why did you think we need to find the card?
Just in case I was going to need it in the future.
Okay, well, we have that.
How long I'm going to be here, or if or when I'll ever be released, or if you guys are going to be around at that point. But, birth certificate, social security card might be things I'll need in that case.
Well, the penalty for the crimes you have been charged with carry a minimum 40-year sentence. So obviously we're going to be gone, Rick will be gone, we'll all be gone. We're sad about that, obviously, because there won't be anybody here for you when you come out.
Yeah, and I'll be lucky if I have another 40 years left in me either, so.
Yeah.
I see why Deborah is bemoaning the fact that the hospital can't come up with records from 30 years ago? This accident, again, happened September 26th, 1994, more than 30 years ago. And so me digging into the court system, trying to find out what happened in the wake of this accident was also an exercise in yikes this week. But I will show you everything I found. And I also found it ironic that Maddie was also an 8-year-old child when something very horrific happened to her, according to Stephan's court records, at the hands of Stephan. His very first count violation on the CSAM case describes the horrific battery he committed against Maddie on or about June 19th, 2019, when she was only 8 years old. Now we know that probably wasn't the first instance, but obviously that's the first that police can prove and put in his charges. And I'm wondering, did Stephan somehow consciously or subconsciously blame the adult male driver for ruining his life as an 8-year-old who ran him over? So did Stephan decide to ruin Maddie's life starting at age 8 or even earlier? Did he look at her like, well, my life was ruined as an 8-year-old. Why do you get to live a great life? Let me ruin yours too. And what goes on in the minds of these people that commit these heinous acts. Even though this accident happened September 26, 1994, a case wasn't filed until nearly 4 years later. So I was wondering, did his parents notice significant changes within Stephan from 8 years old to 12 years of age? Is that why they decided to then file the case? So we have this case number I've really dug into, 1998 CA 001829NC. It was filed April 1st, 1998. So by then, Stephan was about to turn 12 years of age. There's 2 defendants listed, Jason Earl Cobb and Timothy C. Sumner. And then GEICO Insurance Company is also a defendant. I don't know who the heck was driving. If you search for this case in the Sarasota court website, whoa, it's nuts. Sometimes it pops up, sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't give you the actual documents. So that's why I was calling Sarasota and on hold and ended up just giving them my American Express credit card number, even though I had no idea how many pages these court documents are. I'm still waiting for the snail mail. So I wanted to read everything about this accident. With the lawsuit, they have to have details as to what Stephan went through, what Stephan suffered. What are we going to hear in court as his defense? Well, I'm talking to the person who orders the court records, and she's like, well, yeah, that can happen when it's court records that are so old. That's probably why the Sarasota hospital can't find any records for Stephan. It's just so old. So the same problem here with this court case, but thank God I was able to find some information. I'm talking with the court order taker, whomever, and she's like, well, it's going to be $1 a page. I will just warn you. But I'm like, I can't see how many pages on your court website. It doesn't show how many pages. And she's like, yep, it doesn't show. And I'm like, well, it could be what, 1,000 pages? Or are you about to charge my credit card $1,000? I have no idea. I just had to take a risk. So far, they've only charged me more than $4, and I think it's because maybe they only have 4 pages of court records, even though there's a ton of entries. But let's see what was happening around the time this lawsuit was filed in the case of Stephan Sterns' accident injury. According to the below-linked divorce paperwork, a lot was going on with Chris and Deborah Sterns' would-be divorce and marriage bump in the road at this point. On December 27, 1995, Deborah retained an attorney while she still lived with her mother, stepfather, and her young son, Stephan, in Yorba Linda, California. They lived there until approximately July 1996, when she left California to stay with her father in Roswell, Georgia. I remember Stephan talking about living on a farm somewhere in Georgia. Deborah's going to talk about, in one of these interviews I listened to again today, she talks about he didn't want to do any chores. Meanwhile, Stephan is regaling the transport officer on March 1st, 2024, talking about, I was just moving the wheelbarrow and it tossed me into a pile of poop. Anyway, back then in the divorce paperwork, it says the parties acknowledge that the minor child of this marriage, Stephan Michael Sterns, born April 25th, 1986, has resided in the state of California, County of Orange, since September 1995, and California is his home state. They don't talk hardly at all about Stephan's older brother, Rick. I don't know if that's a son that Deborah had from a previous relationship or Chris had from a previous relationship. They only talk about this Rick guy being much older than Stephan, leaving for the military when he turned 18 or whatever, and so they were far apart in age. And he went on to do great, according to Deborah. According to this paperwork, Deborah's lawyer, E. Jane Garland, wrote, "It is my understanding that Deb was basically attempting to reconcile with Chris at the time, and her lawyer, Miss Garland, could no longer get a hold of Deborah." Now remember, Deborah explained she married Chris on August 16th, 1980. And separated from him on December 22nd, 1995. It's interesting to see they separated December 22nd, 1995, the year after Stephan suffered this injury from a car accident. It's saying, with only one child, the issue of our marriage, Stephan Michael Sterns, he was 9 years old at the time his parents were separating. Deborah sounds like she's gone through a lot. She wrote about her and Stephan returning to California. She had to have surgery on both of her feet, but she discovered her marriage had ended. That's how it's written in the documents. When Chris called her on December 14th, 1995, saying he felt they should separate because he was unhappy in the marriage. Set the scene here. Can you imagine? Obviously, Stephan was in Florida in 1994 when there was this accident. It's supposed to be this big TBI injury. He was hospitalized, I don't know for how long. A troubled boy, harmed. As a result of this, his personality allegedly changed or what have you. And that very next year, Deborah is off, going with Stephan out to California without Chris. She has to have surgery on both of her feet. She's learning her marriage had ended when she gets this call before Christmas in 1995, Chris saying, "I think we should separate." Deborah's asking, why do this at Christmas time? And Chris said he didn't feel there was an appropriate time to end a marriage. So Deborah discovered Chris had been, quote, leading a double life. I find that very apropos, almost like father like son sometimes, Did Jennifer discover Stephan was leading a double life, or did she already know? Anyway, Deborah discovered Chris had been leading a double life, one part of which he has kept completely secret from me, she wrote. I discovered basically, Chris has had an ongoing relationship with a woman he refers to as Pooh. So after all this, her son being in an accident, she needs surgery. She's at her parents' house in California, recovering. Her marriage is ending, she thought. She found notes, cards, books, celebration of a 15th anniversary between her husband, Chris, and this Pooh woman. $800 per month spent in telephone bills. I mean, if he was with this other woman for 15 years at this point, that means Chris must have been with this other woman since 1980. Anyway, that reminds me of Prince Charles when he was so committed to his relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles. Like he wore those C&C cufflinks during his wedding to Princess Diana. It's almost like, why marry someone else if you're so committed to someone else? Anyway, if you want to see all those details, I don't want to get off track about what else Deborah learned and all the child support ordered, their income, etc. around this time, because it all plays into this injury and this lawsuit and everything. I put the links below. Apparently they reconciled, the divorce never went through, but a lawsuit over Stephan's accident was filed and it was amicably settled by May 11th, 1998. There's an order of dismissal which lists Stephan M. Sterns, a minor, by and through his natural mother and best friend, Deborah Sterns. They're listed as the plaintiffs against the aforementioned guys and GEICO defendants. So it was a gamble that paid off. The order appointing guardian of property of minor dated January 25th, 1999 regarding the guardianship of Stephan Sterns reads as follows. It's going to show how much money Stephan got as a result of this lawsuit. On the petition of Christopher Sterns for the appointment of a guardian in the property of Stephan Sterns, a minor, the court finds basically that Stephan is incapacitated because he's a minor, and they appointed a guardian over him. And the guardian must place the following property of the ward: $20,000 net proceeds from the personal injury settlement in a restricted account in a financial institution designated pursuant to Florida statutes. That's what was ordered on January 20th, 1999. There was an order of dismissal with prejudice, which provides more details thanks to Impossible Spray on Reddit for the screenshot and inspiring me to take this journey about Stephan's TBI and his lawsuit and all the implications. And it says all causes of action are hereby dismissed with prejudice from any injury or damage resulting from the September 16, 1994 accident. Ultimately, that guardian appointed as Stephan's guardian would be dismissed by June 29th, 2004, because Stephan by then had reached the age of majority and he had money. And it's going to be a theme, inheritances and money and mysterious money throughout the rest of Stephan's life. According to a Wachovia securities statement from March of 2004, there was a balance of more than $13,700 in the account for Stephan. So attorney's fees and expenses were paid out of it, but obviously not much else was removed prior to that. Perhaps the family or Stephan didn't need the money at that point. Maybe they were rolling in the dough, like some of his friends have said, like Stephan's parents had money during certain periods in their lives. The funds were transferred from Fidelity Investments to Bender Growth Funds. However, I'm wondering, when Stephan turned 18 on April 26th, 2004, did he get total access to the nearly $14,000 and just immediately blow it? Chris kind of referenced that. He referenced different inheritances.
Trying to get him out of bed and, go out there and find a job and what have you, and then all this fell apart. But there was money, there was packages arriving on a constant basis. When I asked him about, where the money was coming from, he said savings. Well, I can tell you that other than the inheritance he got from his father, which he blew through rather quickly, there was never been any savings. He never saved 2 nickels. So some money had to be coming somewhere. But his comment about I didn't start it got us wondering that maybe he was caught up in a criminal enterprise with Jen.
I know you said that you didn't necessarily approve of some of these friendships, and then you said he dated a crazy girl or one or two.
She was crazy.
Were there any inappropriate relationships with females? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Never.
If his lips are moving, he's lying, and I'll never get the truth out of him, and there's no way of breaking him. We're missing a Rolex. Where did that go?
My father's Rolex.
So, he would never fess up to that. And again, where did all this money come from? Where's his Omega watch? So I'm assuming where all this money was coming from is that maybe he sold off his Omega and maybe sold off the Rolex, which I find shocking. He would sell that Rolex first before he would sell his Omega, because that's how much he cherished that watch. He inherited some money and immediately went out and spent $7,000 on a watch like he really needed to. So I have no idea where that was. But he was very impulsive. He couldn't wait. If he wanted something somehow, some way, he got it.
In one interview, there's an inheritance that Chris oddly references in his July 16th, 2024 police interview, where Chris might have misspoke, but he said Stephan received, quote, from his father, some inheritance, which he blew through rather quickly. So did Stephan have other monies besides this nearly 14 grand he got from the personal injury lawsuit claim? Obviously, Chris misspoke because he's Stephan's father. Or did he get an inheritance from Chris's father? I don't know. And what made Stephan's parents accuse him of stealing his grandfather's Rolex watch and pawning it? That's very sad if Stephan literally did that. If he stole Deborah's dad's Rolex and decided to pawn it because he doesn't want to work, he just wanted money, money, money to feed his own needs. Chris said if Stephan's lips are moving, he is lying. He's very impulsive, he inherited some money, and he went out and bought a $7,000 Omega watch. Where's his Omega watch? Chris asked. So it was his prized possession, some Omega watch. At some point, Stephan no longer had it. Perhaps he pawned that too. A common theme throughout a lot of these interviews, maybe we'll go over his friend Frank's interview in another video. I did listen to it again today. And by the way, where's Chase's interview? Where's Chase's interview with police? There are certain interviews I really think we're still missing. But the common theme was, like Frank said, Stephan had all this money. He didn't want to work. He was always calling into Disney, his parents said. That's what Jen told him. He was always calling in. The common theme is Stephan is a man who doesn't really want to work, but he always had pretty much more than enough money. Was he getting it from Jen? Where was he getting this money? Everyone wonders. I fear he got the money, and perhaps Jen too, by selling all these photos or videos of Maddie, perhaps on the dark web, or doing horrible things with it, and maybe that's how he got money. And so I tell myself, even if he's able to somehow escape the death penalty in Florida, he would still hopefully get convicted for life based on all these horrible images. I mean, just what a horrible person. Even if Stephan's lawyers can dig deep and find all this data I haven't received yet about his TBI injury, what if the hospital is able to somehow go back and probably be in a box somewhere and find data about his traumatic brain injury? Won't a jury still see through that ruse? I know a TBI is more nebulous. It's one of these things where it's like, medical definitions and how can it impact your behavior? And either way, will it have any impact on his guilt or innocence? Won't a jury see through that? And I tell myself, if not that, all this CSAM material, surely a jury will see through that. They have the actual evidence from his phone, from his Google Drive. He appears apparently in these images or videos. They can ID him. It is Stephan. He was in a role of authority over Madeline's life, sometimes called her stepfather throughout all of these documents. To me, it seems like a slam dunk, case closed, he's going down type of case. But I've done some living and I've seen juries do some crazy things. For example, I was alive watching the Rodney King case. The Rodney King case resulted in the acquittal of 4 Los Angeles police officers in a state trial, even though they were caught on video, very shockingly, just beating the man. It was horrible. It did lead to the conviction of 2 of those officers ultimately in a federal civil rights trial, but the verdict led to those 1992 LA riots in which 63 people lost their lives and more than 2,000 people were injured. And me, sitting there in corporate America at shock that these cops could be acquitted, and I'm all for great law enforcement. You guys know me. I'm always like, yeah, back the blue, the ones who are great officers out there doing a job I would never want to do. God bless them all. But sitting there in 1992 watching these officers just beating this man relentlessly was horrible. And being at my corporate job and, having this one coworker say to me, try and tell me a joke. I can't remember the stupid joke, but the punchline was some baseball player got traded for 4 cops who could hit. And when I looked at the guy who told me, he tells me, get a sense of humor. So living through that case. And then the O.J. Simpson case. What was the jury's deal there? We know O.J. Simpson's lawyers brilliantly, if not evilly, if not with the most evil intent, switched the whole thing around, made the jury think and the public think, oh, this is all about race. No. O.J. Simpson was found not guilty of murdering his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ronald Goldman on October 3rd, 1995. Horrible, a horrible miscarriage of justice in my opinion. The verdict came after an 8-month trial that began in January of 1995. Even though there was plenty of blood evidence, plenty of circumstantial evidence, O.J. had cut his finger. Nicole had called the cops so many times before, warning them, he's going to kill me. There's so many domestic violence calls to their home and so much evidence, so much proof. But no, it didn't really matter to that jury. Of course, DNA evidence was new. People weren't understanding how it really related and just how strong DNA evidence could be. And it was sad. And that man, O.J. Simpson, got to walk free after nearly decapitating his ex-wife. And Ronald Goldman had more than 20-something stab wounds. Horrible, horrible crime. I believe O.J. did it. He's met his maker now, so even though he could fool a jury with all the machinations, it was illogical to me. I like logic. O.J. Simpson walking free did nothing for me. Some people were like, and the news was very polarizing. Of course, the news showed a lot of people of color cheering and other people, oh, so sad. It wasn't really like that in real life. I was not cheering when O.J. Simpson was found not guilty because I'm one for justice. No matter what color you are, I just like the color of justice. Right is right and wrong is wrong. So I've learned to never say a case is in the bag. Oh yeah, a jury's got to be able to see. Look what Stephan Sterns did. Look what was on his phone. Look at how he pressured Maddie. Look at how he gaslit her, made her think they were in love, maybe made her think they were going to run away. How he acted like, oh, I'm such a savior between Jen and Maddie. Like Deborah in her interview said, oh, sadly, Jen's bipolar and now Maddie's bipolar too. And they would just go at it. And Stephan would be the peacemaker. She called her son the peacemaker. Deborah said she would be on the phone with Stephan and hear Maddie and Jen going at it, fighting like cats and dogs. And Stephan would say, oh, I got to get off the phone. I got to go break this up. She held him up as the peacemaker. I don't think a jury would fall for that. At least I'm hoping a jury doesn't fall for that. I can understand why some people don't want to vote for the worst penalty. Maybe they feel like, okay, I don't have the right to take a life, even if he took a life. That's a deeper discussion. So I've learned to never say a case is in the bag. When Derek Chauvin was convicted of murdering George Floyd in 2021, I got right down here on my floor. And I cried tears of relief because I've seen O.J. Simpson get off. I've seen those 4 cops who beat Rodney King walk free out of the courthouse. To see Derek Chauvin get convicted, it was like, okay, there is justice. Justice can happen. Chauvin was a former Minneapolis police officer and he was found guilty of 2nd-degree murder, 3rd-degree murder, and 2nd-degree manslaughter. And now, I didn't even watch it, but there's some new police body cam video, I guess, of a woman who accused Derek Chauvin of excessive force back in a 2020 arrest. But that's it for now. We will see what I get in snail mail. If there's more information about Stephan Sterns' accident or anything I can find, I will update you guys. But for now, this is what I've been able to deep dive into and find, and thank God for websites like Crime Timelines and others, and just regular court websites and me just digging through to try and find the truth. Let's just close with Revelation 5:13. And I heard every created thing that is in heaven or on earth or under the earth, in Hades, the realm of the dead, or on the sea, and everything that is in them, saying together, to him who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb, Christ, be blessing and honor and glory and dominion forever and ever. Okay, so that's the deep dive. What do you think about Stephan's TBI defense and trying to stay alive? And if he doesn't flip on Jen by now, maybe he will. And there are more depositions coming in. The person who owned that property we went over in the most recent video I did about Madeline Soto and how she was found only 0.7 miles away from Jennifer's friend. So the woman mentioned the name of the property, and so that person has been deposed. There's a lot of video depositions coming through with minors in the case and more. If Stephan's lawyer is fighting so hard to just free him, or, of course, any lawyer, criminal defense lawyer would want to get their client off. If she's fighting so hard, if Stephan was able to point a finger at Jennifer Soto, I think he would have done so by now. I don't know. Let's see what happens. The docket and I just paid Florida more money for more documents, and we're waiting on more evidence. It just takes time. Or it even the stuff like we don't have to pay for, it takes time in terms of me, calling and digging and reading and exploring and trying to get to the truth. Ultimately, we just hope it all ends in Maddie getting her justice and not seeing this Yahoo walk free like I've seen some Yahoos walk free like O.J. Simpson and have to put up with them on social media for decades before they finally meet their maker and the truth, the ultimate judge, has his say-so and shuts that door that no one can open or opens that door that no one can shut. Thanks so much for watching all of this. Stay tuned. I'll probably break down some more interviews that I haven't broken down yet next, and we will just go from there. Thank you so much. Take care.